Planning meeting for thank everybody for coming and thanks for the great attendance and for all the people at home, all 7 of them, 8. But anyway, this will be recorded, of course, and I want to thank everybody for attending. This is a workshop, not a board meeting, so discussion will be, open as it always is, but no decisions are going to be made today. They'll be made in a normal session under a normal board meeting. During the session, we'll discuss the mission, vision, and values. The document that you saw that was put out is my document. It was not collaborated with my colleagues for the most part. I've been whining about some of these things for 5 years, so it's not meant to be the sense of the board. It's just my view of how I think we should do things going forward. So the purpose is to basically, for the workshop, is to kind of put something together that the board can focus on, but we also will get community input on. The members are encouraged through this process to look at what the future direction of the association should be. And after the board discussion, members will be asked for their perspective, both in the open forum today and some future meetings down the road once it gets crystallized as to what we're actually going to look at as far as a strategic plan, or more importantly, if we even want a strategic plan. That'll be part of the discussion point. So Jamie will lead us through the open forum after I go through the slides and have some conversations with the colleagues. So the goals of the workshop, as I said, are these my ideas. We need to have a discussion to build a consensus with the board. It's a conversation with the board. These are not tablets handed down from on high. These are just my thoughts. We want to confirm that the outcomes under these various different initiatives are what we want to work on. We want to select some of the outcomes to make sure that they create the most value for the members. So the members can get that experience that they paid for, but recognizing we have a diverse set of financial capabilities within our community. We need to prioritize the most achievable and impactful outcomes. We can't do it all, and the board particularly cannot do it all. There's too much to do for just the 5 of us to do, and it's over a term, a couple of year period that I'm hoping that we'll focus on. Engaging with the community is absolutely critical. We hope, as you read through the deck, hopefully that we'll be looking for members' engagement. I don't say that lightly, because that causes a whole raft of other issues. We get people to work on various different parts of these outcomes from their perspectives. We can't sit and burden our staff, both Blue Star and TMT, because they pretty much are working on day-to-day operations. So if you want to not get your cheeseburger on time, let's take a couple of cooks and ask them their questions about what they think about 5 years down the road. So we really have to find that proper balance. If we burden the staff, that'll ruin, or hurt day-to-day operations. These are longer-term activities, and we're not going to resolve these things this afternoon, but hopefully we're going to move towards where we stack hands and the board can, the phrase I've always used is row in the same direction. And quite frankly, I don't care whether we go to Brazil or Portugal, well, we all got to go pick one and go to one of those places. I personally like Portugal. If the members don't support the plans that we put together, then we can go back to just doing one-off projects, which we've been doing pretty consistently and successfully implementing. The example might be, we've been working on the AV project. It's coming to fruition. We've been working on the access control project. We've been working on the gate project, but they're all just projects. And I'm looking for something different. And with that, I'll go to the first slide here. Second slide, sorry. Just did that.
Catching up.
Yeah. We'll go back. I'm sorry. 1 minute, please. No, thank you. Several years ago, under Joe's leadership, we spent a lot of time putting together a document, like we used to do in corporate America if you worked in a big company. What was our values? What's our mission? and what's our vision. So this is the document. It's not the exact document. It's basically, I use my friend ChatGPT to take our vision, goals, and missions and put it into a briefer form, but in essence, it's the same. So just to review, the vision is we want our community to be the place where people want to be. Excuse me, our vision. I think our mission is to maintain the member experience. In the member experience, when I say that, I always mean the active resort lifestyle community. That's what I think we all bought. That's what I think we all want. And our values, pretty simple: to be financially responsible, to be open, be open in communication, to be inclusive and accountable, and be kind to people, both our service providers and our colleagues. So I don't really care whether this is the document that people focus on or the one we wrote 2 years ago. To me, they're in essence the same. One's longer, one's shorter. But I would just hope that as we continue the discussion today, that we're focusing on everything needs to tie back to those vision, missions, and values. So when I was thinking about a strategic plan, and I talked to a lot of people in the community and some of the board members, I think there's 3 overall strategies that we should have going forward. Let me just say when you read the stuff I put together, step back for it, I'm sorry, is that we talk about outcomes. And when I worked in corporate America, we always had just projects. And what I'm looking for is a little different. For a community, I think we need to do projects that contribute to an overall outcome that we want to try and achieve. So the outcomes that I want to achieve is to enhance the members' experience, foster community, optimize our business operations, and all this is done with the support of the members' engagement. So I make a distinction, between a project and an outcome. And if you read any of the work from Rahm Emanuel, former ambassador in Japan, that's kind of his operation. So it wasn't my creativity on my own, but I leveraged some stuff by reading some of the things that he did on organizational design. So with that, these are kind of the strategies that I'd like to see, or the big ideas that I think we should focus towards in the next 3 years or so. With that, I'd like to stop, take a drink of coffee, and kind of get some sense from my colleagues here. Those are the 3 things we want. The big ideas that are good. I realize there's a lot of meat that needs to be flushed out below. Are we off base? Are we off track? So I'd like to just get some feedback from from colleagues. So anyone want to step up?
Well, I think the items you've listed here are kind of like what you said. GPT sort of rehashed what we already had as far as our strategies, which were to ensure financial stability, maintain the physical assets, promote camaraderie and enhance the member experience, maintain the safety and character of the community, and implement excellence in business and operational practices. And that's another way of saying the same thing. It's not quite as clear in my opinion. That's one of the things I run into with strategic plans. Every time they start one, they become very wordy and very high level. And I think it's better to keep them pretty consistent and down, but you can work with those. I think they're just a little harder to follow than what we said before.
I pulled out the plans from 2019 up till now, and these ideas do follow along all the things that we've been doing and accomplishing and focusing on. The language isn't the same, but I think the thought behind it is the same. So this isn't a big change. It's just a new way of saying what we've been doing up to this point. Okay.
And nothing that probably isn't in most HOAs. Values and goals and whatnot. So Jeffrey, thank you for refreshing it. You could wordsmith this for hours. To me, the meat will come on those projects and outcomes that we have listed and that we need to talk about and get member input. So there you go.
No, the context hasn't changed, and so I don't feel it's necessary to spend any more time on it.
Okay, check the box, we're going to court. So with Next Start, I'd like to kind of go through kind of what the outcomes that I would hope to see under the first big idea, which is enhancing the member experience. But I would say we all invested in this premium resort lifestyle. But the real question is, how do we maintain it as a 5-star experience? You know, many of us have been lucky by one way or the other, corporate life or others, to stay at a Four Seasons and a, you know, Ritz-Carlton and places like that. So, you know, how do we get to do that, but also make it available for everybody in the community, whether they've had that experience or not? So developing I use the 5-star lifestyle is the rating. So here's a couple of ways I think we could go to get there. Basically developing a comprehensive 5-year plan for the resort facilities. You know, we do one-off projects. And so if you look backwards, we've had a 5-year plan. We just didn't quite realize it's a 5-year plan. I think, you know, Finance Committee recommended, and I agree with it, that we should have a team of people who would work on a plan of what we want to do with our resort facilities. Do we want to build a Ferris wheel? Do we want to build a golf course? How do we stage that all in? And it obviously has a whole process to go through the CIP and member assessments and things like that. But are we all stacked hands that's where we want to go? I think the other thing that would contribute to the member experience is kind of the rebranding of Abby's analysis.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is
I
it
was going
possible?
to do it at the end, but you can do it
Okay,
now.
can we, because if you read through them, we're gonna have to go back anyway. Can we address or at least have a comment on each one of these before we move to the
Yes,
next one? Is
sure.
that
No,
possible?
it's fine.
Okay. Do have a question on the first one. And more of a clarification. So develop a comprehensive 5-year plan. So right now we have our CIP process, which is kind of like a 5-year
Yeah.
plan. Is this in conjunction to, is it redundant? It's not clear the distinction between this and our CIP process to me.
Yeah, and as Joe said, these are just more flowery words at this point. We have to put some meat on it and make sure it's consistent with other processes. I mean, I think, to me, the 5-year plan, the CIP is the execution of that. But, you know, what are those 5-year goals going forward? Help?
Jeffrey, I would disagree slightly and say that our 5-year plan includes a lot of things that may not even cost money, let alone have capital associated with them, like getting more community input. As we go through, you'll see a number of these don't take much or any capital, and as such are not specifically called out now. And that's why I think, Jeffrey, is your intention here.
Yeah.
And that's a good distinction, Helen, thanks, because that differentiates between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the CIP is really capital funding.
Yeah. As you'll see, as some of these things going forward, they're not money related, it's process related.
We have a 30-year plan. It's called the Reserve Study. We have a capital improvement program that's coupled with the focus on the future process, where we pull and go through a very detailed process of soliciting input from the community. The idea that, we need to have a 5-year plan we can put in a book and bind up. We already have the components of that. And I think that the focus on the future and the CIP program are flowing and operating. I don't know that you need to come up with some big document that tries to tie them together. So to me, this is already happening. We budget on a 5-year basis. We have a reserve study. We have the CIP program that runs on a 5-year basis. And we have the focus on the future refund. So if you want to create a 5-year plan, you should be able to get it in about 1 paragraph that outlines those things. I would make it as a big.
Just because it's on this list doesn't mean, I
Accomplish.
mean, we've all had workbooks on our bookshelves in work that when the crisis happened, you never looked at, you went and did something else. So I agree with you, but I just think it's from consistency, we all need to be engaged. What's in those documents is kind of driving us to the future. So it's almost a communication thing to make sure that the community appreciates that we have a direction and path. I'm not saying it's necessarily, a major effort.
Jeffrey? And again, very briefly, and as a comment only, I will say you will hear the term focus of the future. That was almost 3 years ago. Some of you may not even know what it is. It was a brainstorming session, a get it out there session. It is not a well-prescribed plan to which we are operating. And not that we need to be totally buttoned up, but focus of the future was a great first iteration. Now time to take that forward, perhaps in a different way, but still as a vehicle to get community input.
Good comments. Thank you. The second outcome that I think would help us get enhancing the member experience is dealing with Abby's analysis. You know, we have an opportunity through the reserve report. You know, those facilities need to be upgraded. And I worked on a project on my own a while back on what Alice's should look like. We need to get the community to decide what they want it to be. Do they want it to be a sports bar? Do they want it to be fine dining? Do they want it to be a reading lounge? What do they want it to be? Just status quo? Do they want it to be another concept? You know, it needs to be refreshed. It's 15 plus years old. It was redone in 2017 when Shay, took a pass moving it from the carry out to what it is today. But it, like any business and restaurant, it needs to be addressed. Abby's, as we all know, is a warehouse now working as a kitchen. And when the new kitchen gets done, we'll have an opportunity to not have work done in there. What do we want that to be? I just think we need to get some members to work on what we want it to be and relaunch it as what it should be. If it's status quo, that's fine. And we'll just put some paint and finishes on it and move on down the road. But I don't think the board on its own should sit there and decide that. I think the community needs to give us some feedback so we can decide how to allocate money for that. Joe's got a plan on how we should do Abby's. I've got a plan on how we should do Abby's. We need everybody's thoughts on it. My plan's terrible and Joe's is terrible.
I'll bet you end up building mine.
Okay. Okay, we just got off the boat to Portugal.
I was just gonna say, how's that boat going?
You heard it, any comment on that?
Yes, I have a couple. When we talk about rebranding, that can mean a lot of different things. I understand that. There's no, it can be casual for Alice's, upscale for Abby's. A lot of this came out during Focus on Future. And since you brought it up, Helen, Focus on the Future survey, it was a great effort. We had probably more people participate in that Focus on Future survey than we actually have voting for our board members. But what's disappointing is that this was back in August of 2022. And if you look back on all the 50 highest rated items, we've actually done 2. One was in reserve, and that was the chairs, thank God. And the second was the acoustics. Thank you, sir. But that's it. And there were a number of things that were mentioned regarding Alice's and Abby's. So the disappointing part is we refer to it, but it seems to just be referred to. I haven't seen enough action from the items that our members told us 3 years ago. So when we talk about Focus on the Future, if I'm a member and I participated in that in 2022, and you ask me to revisit it and talk about it again, my willingness is probably not going to be as strong as it was then, because I'm not certain that the board listens enough to start to act on that. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying the experience in 2022 didn't make me feel like, whoa, these guys really listen. So
Don't we have a lot of those items in the CIP now?
we have one item in the CIP right now, which is shade. And shade was the #1 request out of the top 10 items in 2022. There are items we've approved in the CIP that never even made the top 100. All I'm saying is if we're asking our members to come forward, focus on the future items, focus on the future for the next 2 years, we need to make a better commitment that when they do ask for these requests, or they do know things that they feel is important to them, me as well, I think it has to be more than just 2 or 3 items in 3 years. Again, I don't want to go down a rat hole, but since you brought up Focus on the
You're going down a
Future,
rabbit.
I want to make sure that I've had a chance to express my comments on it.
The focus on the future gives indications of interest. The capital improvement program, every homeowner is invited to submit ideas and we get together and develop projects that they would like to be considered. And we have a pretty extensive program. And I think it's probably a good indication of what we're going to be working on over the next few years. The problem we're going to run into at some point is cost. And that was one of the big factors we made people aware of, each wish has a cost to go with it. That's part of the process.
Yeah, but we did the focus, which was dynamite. We didn't put a cost
Right.
limit to it. It was just like pie in the sky. What do you want? Some of them we had to eliminate because, adding an extension to the building, additional office spaces, things like that. We had to eliminate because of cost. So, to Joe's point, I think people have been telling us by the submission to the CIP what it is that they would like. And we give the whole community the chance to do
Well,
that.
that's where I think the five-year plan, whether it's a paragraph or a book, is the next level of evolution of how we, move the community down the road.
As Helen brought up the other night at the board meeting, and I don't disagree, Cindy and Joe, because you're right, we have a process. But as Helen pointed out Tuesday, that process for members is very cumbersome and not necessarily easy to navigate. So if we're going to continue and use those items there, use any further items that come out of the community, the process for members to be able to submit needs to be more easily understand. We had a number of projects, as you know, Helen, that came from the community, but there was no detail in it. So it was basically put on the back burner.
John, that's why
But-
we basically talked
So
about it.
I know, so
Revising the
I think our members need to have a better way of filling out the document, or at least have people get back to them sooner than later on how they can do this.
And if you listen or had a chance to resume the board meeting to that part of it, you will hear that discussion exactly and some of the plans submitted by the finance committee to evolve that. So tune back in to your Zoom meeting when you get a chance.
Okay. So I hear what John's saying. We're going to kind of keep moving down the road. We got a lot of things to check off or X or things like that. But John mentioned at the meeting the other day, amending the CC&Rs. The CC&Rs don't necessarily limit, our ability to have enhanced member experience, but there are lots of things in the CC&Rs that are just old, outdated, and antiquated. The NOLA that John talked about as far as a source of capital, it's just one item that needs to be updated in the CC&Rs. We can't do that unless we are able to get the community behind changing this quorum issue. So you'll hear more about that, but I just don't want people to think that the CC&R, the NOLA is just the end of the show. We've got lots of other things that need to be addressed in there, and the community needs to vote on those things as well. Any discussion on CC&R updates, Joe?
Well, when you look at this particular slide, the CC&R update, we actually had that in our plan, and it turned out that it was a much bigger project than we thought. And so this is a good first bite on it. In fact, it attacks one of the major issues in the CC&Rs. And this particular item is what I would call a strategic item. And I think it's important to work on getting that done.
Right.
And that really has to happen before you can do much else with the
Totally agree.
CC&Rs.
That's why on my notes, we've got 3 stars. One of the things that's, and.
Not 5?
Was-
Not 5 stars?
no, it's just-
That's
okay,
the
fine.
spot.
The next issue that I think is an incumbent to, is an impediment somewhat to members' experience is the allocation of resources devoted to the pickleball and tennis world. I'm not debating it now. I play in both communities, but that's an asset that we need to really figure out how to optimize. The community needs to figure out how to optimize what they want that to be. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So, if the community thinks that's something we need to work on, I personally do, but it's just to me an overhang to stop us, it limits us from making investments because we don't really know whether it's going to be an apple or an orange or a grape down down there. So Helen, do you want to talk about that?
No matter what it is, I'd like to see a comprehensive plan. We have multiple sports that play at it, and heaven knows there could be another one in a few years we haven't even heard of yet. You know, no matter what game you play, having shade, having seating, having a water fountain, were all great ideas that were brought up last time. We need a comprehensive plan. We need diagrams. We need it to look and feel like part of the community, and we need to move forward.
The shade and seating that is in the CIP, is it not?
Yeah.
And I think the kitchen project is a good model for that. We actually allocated funds to retain professional help to develop that project. And the same thing goes for a project like this. We probably have to spend a little bit of money with an architect. You got to be careful. It's always been looking at the issue, the pavilion area, does there need to be additional? I don't think it was ever considering the idea of trying to shade the court itself. And
Well, we don't need a solution here, but I do think it's one thing that we need to work on. And as a seating with some ideas of experts is valuable.
And the point I'm making there is that really a strategic item? In other words, that's just part of the capital improvement program and moving forward. And it's working its way through the system that we have. And as Helen has suggested, we've made a few recommendations for improvements in that process, but it is part of that process. And, you know, getting the CC&R straightened out, that's strategic because it manages and controls the whole way we achieve and move forward with the mission, vision, and goals. This is just another CIP
Yeah,
project.
I'm not gonna parse words with you, but it's something we need to deal with that to me is strategic because I'm tired of hearing about it from everybody.
Well, I agree with Joe, though. This is really tactical. And it's tactical and it started, again, it was noted in the Focus on the Future survey 2022, but it really is a tactical. I agree with you on that. And I'm sorry, but I want to go back to the NOLA one. My brain went to sleep there for a second. I want to make sure that everybody understands that it is really a critical item, that CC&R change. And it's to just put it on a slide Tuesday and to put it on a slide today is meaningless if people don't understand the ramifications of what it really means. So to address that, it's our intention to hold at least one town hall and multiples if we need to, because it's so critical, both of those items and CC&R are so critical to moving forward with this association. Everyone needs to have as much information and understanding as possible. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that it's not just a slide today. There's a lot more that we need to do.
Looking at this page, Jeff, if someone's just looking at this, it sounds as though in 2025, we'll be focusing on Abby's, Alice's, and Shade just by looking at this.
So that's not correct.
Well, I know that, but
It's a 3-year program I'm thinking of.
I get it, but that seems to be the ones that we picked out. So what I'm saying, to back what John and Joe just said, I don't think it needs to be on this plan. I think it's items that we will be looking at, but it's not, it's tactical and
But
not.
as I said when I started, this is, I put this stuff on the page.
Okay, I'm
We
just
need
giving you
to
my
decide
opinion
what
that
the
I don't
ranking
think it
is on the
belongs
page.
on this page. Yeah.
The next item on my list is, the outcome is around accessibility. We have legal requirements that we have to deal with. We have, what I'll call ethical requirements we have to do. We need to do the right thing on accessibility. We need to think of it not just as a project, but as an outcome. You know, we are an aging community. We have people who can't take advantage of the facilities we have today. We're addressing some of those, but we need to be, as a community, committed to allocating some dollars to make sure that everybody can use these facilities. And that's all. I mean, I think that is strategic in the sense that we need to figure out what are those things, what's consistent with the law, and what's just the right thing to do. So I just think that to me is a strategic effort to make sure that we're all committed to accessibility, you know, so every member can enjoy what I enjoy.
Jeffrey, just, you say budget. it will be included in our regular budget. We're not developing separate budgets or separate P&Ls or a lot of the money for this is in the reserve. And it can be in the CIP. So it's just a matter, and the committee is doing a fantastic job. Again, go back and look at Tuesday's meeting. We will be getting projects and costs very, very soon, and those will be incorporated into our regular operating budget.
Just the comment on that, I do think that we have to look at that overall. Are we working towards being an assisted living facility, or are we trying to maintain the character of the community when we moved here? And there are some deficiencies in the accessibility area. There's no question about it. But the going forward future character, are we just trying to address the deficiencies for the style of the current community, or are we trying to change the style of the
Yeah,
community?
and that's what I think,
That-
we all have to stack hands on that. I personally have an opinion. It's an active resort lifestyle community, and we need to let people take advantage. If we decide we need to start putting chair rails in the hall, like you do on a cruise ship, then, I think that's not exactly what I think is, but we have to decide that. We is the big we, all of us, need to decide that's what we want. Last one under this list that I have, and I'm happy to take any other considerations that others have, and we already talked about this at the board meeting, is to start taking the capital improvement process and getting more member involvement. The finance committee did a fabulous job building a foundation, but there's not a lot of finance in the next phase of this. Finance committee will determine how those things get funded and what are the functions, but we already talked about this, and I think that's strategic in the sense that we need to move towards community involvement. Community needs to drive some of those. That's my opinion. I don't think there's a lot of debate about that, but I do think it's important. Any other thoughts on?
Just a quick logistical, because I'm a little anal. We have outcome 1.5, outcome 1.7.
Yep.
We eliminate 1.6.
It
That
was
was
a
mine to
typo.
get out.
Lisa, man, how many typos did you find in the sentence, Cindy? Not many.
That's because I looked at it in advance.
No, that was just an
Okay, I
error.
just didn't know if we took something out. Okay,
No,
thanks.
thank you, Cindy.
I think you say the committee will oversee funding for projects. I think the committee's budgeting funding for the projects.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good change.
Yeah, okay. Stacy's got all the stuff.
And one of the things too that Helen, you mentioned the other night about the reformatting the committee and involving, members. And if you recall, you said 3-2 finance, and I said I'd like to see it the other way around. I'm going to support your change because what's more important is actually getting members to want to participate. And if we can get 2 members from the community to participate, that would be a huge win. So I support your change to the 3-2. Yeah.
And the 3 new members weren't in last year's, so it's gonna be 5 new people, so that's a good thing. Okay, any other thoughts on other things that you think are strategic that would enhance the member experience? And you don't have to decide this minute, but I think it's something over the next couple of days as we review this and discuss with the community. If there's other things, bring them up now, bring them up later.
I have a question. This so far seems to have been a board dialogue.
Right.
Are we encouraging the community to
At the
engage
end.
right now?
At the end.
At the end.
Yeah, thank you. I should have said that
At
first.
the end.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. I should have said that first.
Maybe you did, I just. didn't.
No, I didn't, but I should have. I said,
But it is, to clarify, a board operation here.
Yeah.
We can't go in the back room and do this by ourselves because that's illegal. So we're having a discussion. It's primarily for the board to exchange ideas. As they've been talking about, there will be an opportunity and a number of roles where we want to seek additional input. But right now, the board's trying to thrash out in its own mind where it wants to go.
the next big idea is fostering the sense of community. Many, many years ago, I stood up at the podium when I was just on the finance committee, I think, and we were arguing, surprisingly enough, about children in the pool. So this goes back 8 years ago, and I made this comment, and Maureen Christensen was the president at the time, and I made this comment: it's not about you, it's about us. And I still believe that today. We as a community It's not quite the hippie commune that some of us participated in long time ago, but it is a community and we're stronger together than as individuals. And I really believe that. I hope you do too, or I hope other people do. But how do we make sure that when people move into this community, they're invited in and they learn about our community and get to take advantage of all the stuff. Shay did a fabulous job selling people on this community. You know, they did every trick in the book to try and get people engaged in this community. And now that it's all resales, I think we've dropped the ball. I've heard from too many members. I moved in and somebody showed me the mailbox and that was kind of it, you know. I want to get back is the first outcome is kind of revamp the new member orientation process. It used to be a very robust program. I met some of the people I'm most friendly with today 10, 11 years ago during those Shay sponsored member orientations. You used to go to the front desk and Allie at the time would walk you through all the pieces of paper, you know, the bureaucracy of how to take advantage of all the things that you live here, how do you join clubs. I just think we've let that lapse. And I think it's really important going forward to kind of revamp that new member orientation process. And it can't be just, you know, a board member telling you something. We need to have a process of getting people together, you know, engaging with them, letting them take, you know, because I say we're stronger together. If we get 40 new members a year, which is kind of about 40 new families a year, houses sell, you know, that in 5 years, that's a lot of people. So that's something I'm pretty passionate about. And we've taken a couple of stabs at it. And I don't think we've really got the traction on it. With all due respect to Cindy and Lloyd, when y'all took a crack at it, it's just not where I think any of us want it to be. So that's, to me, outcome number one that I think will help us foster a better community. Any comment?
No, obviously, this is one of my issues as well, and it was quite successful in the beginning with Shay because we had 10, 15, 20, 50 people moving in at the same time. So it was quite a lot of people. Then we had COVID, it stopped. So now post-COVID, we attempted to pick it up again. And yes, we would do the little dog and pony show that we did, and we would get 5 people, maybe 7 at the most.
Yeah.
It's not the same kind of feeling, and I'm not saying let's not do it because I put my name on this one. I want to get back to doing this one. You think back to the beginning, we all had special yellow tags. Yellow meant I knew. So we would just automatically go up to the new people. Well, we don't do that now. People don't even want to show, you know, ID badges. But we need to do something to welcome the new people and just, you know, let them know it's a fabulous community. So absolutely.
Jeffrey, I moved in after COVID and after Shay and bought a resale. And I knew absolutely nothing about how to do anything. So this is dear to me. And I sincerely believe this needs to be community driven. We have communities, we have groups, different villages have different things. I'm not trying not to talk with my hands. But we really need to make this community driven, and the board can put ideas out there, but we need you guys to pick it up and run with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Cindy picking it up, at least there was something happening. I have a couple that moved across the street from us about almost 2 months ago, and they've received nothing. I mean, not even MTL. So I'm talking about it because they want to do things, but they don't know how to do it. It definitely has to be beefed up. When we went the first time we moved here, there was a nice little meeting on Hikomi. You know, they had wine, you know, stuff. It was used to, it might have been Joel came in, Allie came in, Tony came in. I don't think we had anybody from the DRC at the time. I wish we did, so I wouldn't have made the mistakes that I did. But I think members need to know as much as possible. And I'm not saying every month, Cindy, that's probably too much.
That would be too much.
And just to put it on MTL that we're having it, if you can't even get to MTL, they'll never know. So I don't know if it's maybe a letter to the new ones every quarter. So I don't know what the answer is,
Well,
but I think it has to be beefed up.
Well,
But I know we're not solutioning this.
Something that's changed since then, which is a positive change, is we have the database updated.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of fell off again with COVID. I'm not blaming it all on COVID. We didn't know who was moving into what house. You know, we still had the old people living in the house and the new people living with them, you know, so we didn't know who was new and who wasn't. That's all changed now. So with the new system, and the team has just been phenomenal with that. I think we'll get a good feel of who just moved in, maintain that list, and then invite them to come up.
Okay.
You do have to factor that on a time basis. Because when it was really exciting and everything was going on, we were getting 100, 150, 200 new families a year. Now we're talking about something that'll range from 5 to 20, maybe 30 in a really busy year. So it's gonna be a different dynamic entirely than what we had before.
It has to be right sized to the amount of work we want to put into it, but I'm not trying to solve the problem, but I just think that's something that we've fallen down as a community on, and I think we need to beef it up. So enough said on that for moving on. And as part of this, the other part about fostering community is the whole communication stuff. I mean, I think the Zoom has been a fabulous tool with all of its foibles, but I mean, people can follow the board meetings. They don't have to leave the comfort of their home. We'd love to have them come up, but you know, that's helpful. You know, we have newsletters, we have, you know, Stevens Club, the board, the club report. We have a lot of different disparate sorts of communications. I just don't think it's a very organized thing. I mean, this is particularly in my own household. You know, I get an email every day about every gym activity that could possibly happen today. And I've already planned my day, so it doesn't really do anything, but I just think, you know, working with Blue Star on the communication, I just think it's right for, you know, members to kind of say, well, what's the best way to communicate? And then the board itself, I think we've gotten a lot better over time of communicating to the community, but I think that could use some improvement as well.
Jeffrey, it's just evolution. I mean, we're not going good to bad, whatever. It just needs to keep moving, and it's time.
Another one that true and dear to my heart is the whole, you know, we have an incredible amount of talent and expertise in this community. And I know everybody's retired, many people are retired, and they want to do their own thing and be with their families and understand all that. But there's a lot of people come up to me and said, oh, you're doing that? I know all about that. Let me tell you about that. And we don't have a database. We don't have any way to kind of reach out to the community. And I know, you know, I'll pick on Blue Star a little bit. We needed to upgrade our furniture out of the backyard. Great idea. We need to do that. So basically they said, well, we don't have a procurement team to do that. We'll get Dana to go do that. Well, that's great. Dana learned something. It came out to be a beautiful project, but I want Dana's, for my opinion, serving drinks, and you know, those are the things that I like. So, you know, for example, you know, we have a lot of things to buy this year. They don't have to buy everything. They need to be involved. Absolutely, they need to be involved, meet the specs, requirements, stuff like that. But how do we kind of leverage some of those expertise in the community? Technology. You know, Joe and I have a particular argument with it. We got, you know, this Zoom card was built by a member. Painfully, he's not speaking to me anymore, but
Yes.
just kidding. But, you know, that was a technology that we developed. What Joe is spending his time on, incredible amount of time on the database and things like that. I'm sure there's people in this room and on TV and at home who could say, oh, I could do that because Joe's just one person. So my point is just simply this. We need to figure a way to how to leverage some of the skills we have here, recognizing that people come and go and that not everybody wants to do it, but can people be arms and legs? So that's kind of my pitch there. How do we leverage the expertise? You know, landscaping, we got a whole bunch of master gardeners here. You know, Jamie does a fabulous job keeping this place upright, but I'm sure she'd like somebody to bounce an idea off. So anyway, I just would like to hear some comments on how do we leverage the skills and capabilities of some of the members who want to participate in things.
Yeah, I think we actually went through that process and solicited members to sign up to be available for consulting. And in fact, you got Vinny helping you on the kitchen. Dave Gilbert and the other working on the ADL stuff. So we have the opportunity to bring that in, and it comes when there's a project that needs it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we need to have standing committees going out to look for work, Lloyd. I'm not suggesting that at all, but we should basically get in the habit of looking for resources, of asking for resources, of who has some expertise to help us. That's all I'm suggesting.
And to that point, it's not, I agree with Joe, we shouldn't have to have something for everything. I would rather focus on things that are ongoing. Technology is ongoing, landscaping is ongoing, accessibility is ongoing, but we don't need a committee for, everything that pops into our head. But anything that's sort of ongoing where we have community expertise that they could help us, I think those are the ones that make the most sense, but not just to create a whole bunch.
Another item on my list, which I think is fostering community, is the whole concept of the access to the lifestyle program. I've heard from some members, the lifestyle program is great, but I can't afford it, or I prefer not to allocate, resources to some of the events that you have. And I know Blue Star does a great job trying to offer something for everybody. And people say, well, you don't offer line dancing. Well, they offer line dancing and nobody shows up. So, it is a very double-edged sword for what Blue Star has to do. But I'd like the members to kind of really provide feedback to a resort operator of what they see our lifestyle events should look like down the road. So it gets everybody's input. Tony does a great job. I mean, Tony's walks on water in my book. But I think, telling her what we want versus getting her to make some offer should be something we should consider.
I think you just validated why it's done the way it's done with Tony taking the lead. People will say, we want this. We don't want this. One individual, two individual wants this. So we have it and no one shows. I think Tony's got the pulse, a hand on the pulse of what's happening in the community. She's been doing this a long time, and not only Tony, but the whole team,
Yeah.
and those in the main office as well. They have a plan. This is what is effective. Absolutely give Tony suggestions without a doubt. She's always open to them, but to have people say, we want this, this, and this, and then nothing happens. Not that we couldn't play with it, but this is Tony's field, and Tony should be heavily involved, and not us saying, Tony, we want this. Tony can tell you why something won't be effective. So I get it. We want community involvement. That office is open. She is willing to talk to anybody.
I agree. The number of times I've gone to Tony with suggestions, and some of them she said, yeah, it makes sense. And others she says, I've tried this before and it just didn't work. So I think we have to trust that expertise. But I agree, everybody should, if you have an idea, hey, I'd like to try this, she's certainly open to it. But it's all, you can only do so much.
And they don't
her
just pick
experience
things out
says,
to do. I mean, there's method to the madness.
Yeah,
I mean, this is why they do what they do.
And I do want to focus on another part of this, but Joe, it looked like you had something you wanted to
Well, I was just
say.
going to comment that the lifestyle program that we have, and that's part of Blue Star's job, is to create that program. We hire them to do that.
So the contract.
It is effective, and all of the activities and events are well attended. They're conducted at a high level of satisfaction. We can see from the surveys, and they are done. The whole program finishes up within budget every year. So I think that, there's opportunities for people to make suggestions, but I think we have a good lifestyle program right now.
And all the sold outs kind of testify to that too.
So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I would say that's the case.
Before we leave though, I want to take a look at the second part of that. Maintaining balance with sustaining viable level of third-party events. No, it's in your section. That's the last part of your 2.4. Where you say while maintaining
sorry.
balance. Okay.
Sorry.
So I want to talk about that a little bit, and I think I need to, and I'm going to bring it up at a board meeting subsequently because there's no decision today. But I'm getting too too many things are coming across where it looks like there's an encroachment on member time to schedule meetings, have activities that, I think the event people are encroaching too many hours on time that should be available for members to do things, in particular on Mondays. Mondays, I try to schedule meetings because there's really nothing that's going on here. And the time availability is much better. I come up here on Monday and the number of members that are playing games or visiting or whatever, it's just incredible. And that's the kind of thing I like to see every day, and we can't. So when I hear that events are being scheduled on Monday for lunches and all that, luncheons mean that's at least 4 hours of time that members now no longer have access to. And that really bothers me. So I know we're not solutioning, but I just want the board to know that I plan to bring that up for further discussion and probably have a motion associated with it. It's not fair that our members pay more every year and they're getting perhaps less than they should. So I plan to bring that forward. That phrase you put in there, I think should not be overlooked.
Yeah, and I apologize, John. I was reading my notes here, not reading the screen. But I agree with you there. And what I want to see is an agreement through the budget process or whatever. We're gonna have 52 weddings, and we're gonna have 38 of these and 40 of these or something like that. And it all adds up to the budget. So everybody knows what the capabilities of the rooms are. So I support that we do need to try and, my opinion, know that. But at the same time, the members want the money from renting out the space. So it's that balance we have to balance. People complain about their dues going up. Well, if Blue Star does a great job selling events and upselling events. And if we decide to tell them not to do that, then the dues go up. So it's that right
That's a balance.
So,
Well, and I think, just to comment, the budget is built that way.
Mhm.
When Stephen and Will are working on the budget, they are saying, we're gonna do this many weddings. this many
I disagree with that,
outside events, this
Joe.
much
I
stuff.
agree, the money is budgeted, but when I say to Stephen, how many weddings do you have? Well, we have this much budget. I want to know 35 and they're on these dates and things like that. So we can work on that in detail, but the concept's the same. I think we need to have the community understand that this room is sold out, whatever the number is, on Saturdays and Sundays, and they know that going in. So it's just not available and you got the benefit from it. I just think it's more almost a communication process. The last one I have on my list, and before we go into kind of anybody else, is just MTL is a communications tool. And Tony will tell you, she offers MTL 101 all the time, and nobody shows up, and they bitch about, they complain about, I don't know what's going on. Well, MTL is a great resource, but we need to figure out how we get people to either get it revamped so people will use it more, and I'm not saying gut it by any means. I'm just saying it's basically been the same for as long as I've been here. Is it the right way that the members use it? So I'm not suggesting that we're going to go get our own communication system, not at all. But I want to basically make sure that the members, have the right to have some input into how it's structured for how they use it.
If you look at MTL in any of the developments, it's the same. So it's not exclusive to us. So to say we need to change it to accommodate us, I don't know if that's possible.
I've heard that it can be customized, look and feel.
Some things can be customized, absolutely, but the MTL is not an HOA site. It's a lifestyle site. When it was built, let's be honest, Shay wanted to enhance, like, oh my gosh, you've got to live in this place. It's fabulous. So they did heavily with the lifestyle side. We do have a tab, an HOA tab. Joe and I have talked about, possibly doing something else with the HOA tab so that we can keep an ongoing, what gate is out today, which will be none. What gate is out today? What's the code if I can't get in? Just something live and ongoing so we can punch up some things, but to change MTL, I don't know that we can do that because it's not an HOA site.
Right.
It's a company site.
I'm not trying to solution it, but I'm just saying, I think,
It's just my opinion.
I appreciate it, Cindy. I mean, I just think that we need to ask the members you know, what would make their lives better, what would help the sense to foster community as far as communication, and the
Yeah.
MTL is our vehicle.
Yeah, it's an
How do we make
ongoing
them,
issue.
how do we make
Yeah.
MTL better? User friendly may not be the right
Yeah.
way, but, you know.
Well, I just have to say a little comical in a sad way. When we did the updates on the gates in the database and things like that, I mean, the amount of communication we put out was phenomenal. Emails, phone calls on MTL, hanging up by the mail, and we still didn't get people.
Oh,
I would call them and say, we've been doing all this. How do you want me to communicate with you? You know, the only thing I haven't done is come to the house.
Yeah.
And they said, well, I wouldn't let you in.
yeah.
You know, so it's like, some people just don't want that.
Yeah.
So we just have to keep all that in mind.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of people, I don't know, a lot, we don't have any idea, but there's a lot of, there are people who just,
So,
I don't really want to be part of this community. I want to just do my own thing, and, you know,
Absolutely.
it's just a house, and I'm willing to pay the fee for stuff that I don't use. That's fine too.
But you're right, Cindy, it's the C word, it's the communication, that's the hard part. I go on MTL a lot because I like to find out what's going on. And there have been some really nice additions there, the monthly, some of the drop downs Tony has done, the new events thing that never used to be there. I mean, there have been some nice additions put on there for you to see. But it's getting the word out, I think, is the issue. And I think that's what you're saying. So, yeah, we have to figure out how to do it better. But MTL is a global vehicle for Blue Star and Trilogy.
Mhm.
But some of the things we've asked for over the last couple of years, they've done a pretty good job of trying to put those items on there. So
We're not just
communication.
talking about MTL.
Yeah.
This is communication, so we need to go,
Oh, that-
MTL is MTL, maybe it can be whipped up a little. But we really need to think about, you know, what we tell you about board meetings, you know, meetings that are gonna happen that goes beyond MTL.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then what the note says, member communications and platform in general. I mean, how do we do it? Because it's, you know, I know I've struggled. I mean, you know, the whole kitchen thing. I mean, we had 200 people show up for the kitchen thing because it was going to cost money. Well, that gets people attention, but it doesn't have to cost money to get people's involved. Any other things that you think that we missed or we should put on the list that are dealing with centering the foster sense of community?
I'd just say, like every time someone comes looking at a home, Carolyn or I are showing them around. Tell them there's a lot going on here, but you have to open your door and walk outside to do it. And that is part of the responsibility of the membership.
Yeah.
They need to come out to get engaged. And we have vehicles that help them do that. We can probably do a little bit more, but there will always be that group that just didn't get the message.
Yeah. Or don't want the message. Yeah, that's fine.
Part of that one too.
Moving on to kind of my next concept or the big idea is kind of optimizing our business operations. And this is an area that's near and dear to my heart because I've been messing with it for quite a while. But there's 4 things on this list. The first one is solve a problem. We know we've kind of hit a trough, and we're hopefully now with Lori back and the energy that Steve and the team are going to put into it, kind of bring it back to its glory. But I still think the member part of the members really don't use a lot of the Sawa Spa, but they do use the fitness side. And I've talked to Lori about this, and Stephen has. Well, how do we kind of rebrand that thing? I mean, once again, it's 15 years old. It makes a lot of money. Could it make more money? Sure. We have labor issues. We always have labor issues because you can't get the skill. I just think we shouldn't lose focus on that. Members don't use the facility. They pay the overhead for it. And how do we get more members involved in there? The wellness programs that used to be done on the back patio were mostly member driven, and hopefully they'll come back. But I just think there's a whole, way to get more amenities for the members around the wellness side of our business. So I don't know if there's nothing, no great wisdom there, but I just,
I think you're struggling up against an issue. If you look at the general population of the world, and the number of people that use a 5-star spa, it's a low percentage. And that's gonna be the case here also. We've always had 5 to 10% of the members use the spa, and that's probably about what it's gonna be unless you wanna start subsidizing it. And even then, I don't think you're gonna increase the membership participation.
So I guess I'm sorry, I don't expect everybody to go run out and spend $500 on a massage. Sorry, I'm not doing it. So, but I'm saying we have this beautiful facility. How do we leverage it for more member type things? Like we used to do, you know, a wellness guy come in and talk about, diet and stuff like that. There's things that we can do with that facility when in off-peak hours that we should continue to leverage. That's all. I'm not saying go use a spa. Well, go use a spa, but, I don't anticipate that being the result.
I think this is one of those items too that, and I use the spa, I use the gym, I live on that side of the building. This is also something that's in Stephen's wheelhouse. I know he just stepped out, but Will's still in. You tell them we want to punch it up, and they then come to us with some ideas of what they see happening. Now, again, as people who live in the community, I do not hesitate to say, you know what I'd like to see type of a thing, but that's just mine. And she'll say, good idea. In fact, it's just now in the hall. She said, you know what, we can't do that. And it's because of this. And it's like, well, hell, I don't know the business you do. So that makes sense.
And I've talked to
So I
Lori
think, yeah.
myself, but my point is, I would like to make sure that the members get a chance to.
They always have the chance. I mean, again, just like Tony, she's always open. What do you see? What do you want? That type
But I
of
think a
thing.
lot of people need to be, if there was a event on, some green clouds, is the newest rage in spa treatment, we should explain it to them. That's all. That's all. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't use the spa, so I have,
I mean,
Very
the
little
spa is
input.
basically sold out.
yeah, and it's the only time I ever find out.
That's just not true,
I think it is. When's the last time you tried to get a reservation?
It's
Well,
not
yes.
fully staffed.
Joe,
Yeah.
it's just not, if you do a capacity analysis, which we're trying to get done, their rooms are available. It's open 70 hours a week. And the rooms for the spa treatments are reasonably empty in the afternoon. It's because of labor though. It's not because.
Yeah.
The
Right.
point.
Yes.
But the point is,
Just wanted to make clear that Joe's right, and I don't use the spa, but Carol does, or tries to, and it's not easy. And even recently, she had a call saying we had to cancel, and that happens. But you're right, and I'm surprised it was as high as 10%, Joe. I thought it was more like 5%.
It's in the, there
With
was
our
a
members,
period.
but it's not that simple, and it's also expensive. So I think, and I agree with Cindy though, let Will come back with a plan. That's their expertise. But as far as, members and the rest of that, that's a tough one. It's hard for members to be able to get an appointment, number one, and because it's full, and the cost.
well, I guess if this was a private building over in Walnut Creek that had excess capacity, they would figure out a way to get it full. And that's, and I've tasked, talked to Will, I've talked to Lori, talked to Stephen about that. And the members can use it or not. But I will say 95% of the nails are members, and members can't use it because there's no nail tech. Jill uses it, but other people won't, just because it doesn't look like it used to. It's not a luxury experience. My point is, we need to put some energy into the spa.
I think it needs punched up. It's aged out.
Right.
So you don't walk in and say, oh my God, this is beautiful, like I did
Right.
in 2015.
Right.
I'm so used to it now. It's like I stopped seeing it. So yeah, it could be punched up, absolutely.
Okay.
But what the spa is to be, I think, is in Stephen's hands, that they can come back to us.
Let's see. Yeah, this one kind of bleeds into the one I had on the other slide about the lifestyle program and the community demographic program. The point is just, I've heard from people, I can't participate in lifestyle because they don't have X. And I just think that we need to make sure that we, that either don't have the disposable income. We need to try and make sure that the lifestyle program reflects the demographics of the community, and the demographics is only going to get, steeper over the next couple of years.
Well, when I read this, I'm sorry, when I read it the first time, I was sort of confused and I really not any more clear what you mean by community's demographic profile. Could you go a little
Yeah, we're getting
more
older.
depth? Well, yeah, but what does that have to do? I'm not sure. I'm not making the connection. I need some help on
Well,
this.
I guess the connection is simply as the community ages, the lifestyle program needs to reflect the fact that the community's got a different profile. I mean, we're getting older, do we still need, do we still need the same type of exercise classes? I just don't want, people who are 55 and 60 have a different thing. I want to make sure that people who are 75 and 80 can still participate in the things that they want to participate in. I mean, I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Age isn't necessarily one-to-one lined up with ability
Right.
and skill set and wants. So, yeah, it's a factor, but so are a lot of other things.
Frankly, I don't, Jeffrey, to be honest, I don't see this as either strategic or tactical.
That's what we're talking about.
Our program, Trilogy is not geared for 80-year-olds. It wasn't sold that way. It wasn't designed that way. My own plan, I have moved into independent assisted living at 80,
Mhm.
because
You got 2 years.
I was just gonna say, when is that? Yeah.
it's not far away.
We'll miss you.
We gotta get that access control system done.
But again, I still think this is something that the team needs to focus on. I mean, they know the community. And yes, we have aged since we moved in, but the newbies coming in now, they don't want to come into an old folks home.
And I guess there's a philosophical mismatch between you and me on that. You keep saying the team should do this, the team should do that. The team is doing their day-to-day job really darn well. And they
Absolutely.
did not have hardly any time to do any planning for the future. That's my opinion. Moving on, we have several contracts with Blue Star Management Trust, Terra Care, and others. And I think it's kind of under the guys in the finance committee, led by the board. We need to make sure that we have a process to work with those contracts and those partners to make sure that we're getting the competitiveness, efficiencies, and value that meet member expectations. I think we do, but on the other hand, I'm just one person, and I hear lots of people say, well, Blue Star doesn't do this, or TMT doesn't do that. I just would like to make sure that we are always focused on maximizing the value of under those contracts. And it's a struggle because, nobody's in charge and everybody's in charge. So I just,
Jeffrey, most of those contracts are generic, and in fact, we do not run them past the finance committee, which we can talk about that sometime. But I think the big thing is within individual, let's take Blue Star, for example. There is every year we are able to adjust the bonus that we pay them. We outline the criteria on which bonus is paid, and that I think we need to pay particular attention to. The contracts, you can read the contracts. They are what they are, and you negotiate them and you get where it wants to be, but there's nothing earth-shaking in it. It's the things we can impact, like bonuses, like feedback on how well they're doing. That
Yeah,
I
well,
think
maybe
we need to
I
focus
shouldn't-
on.
poor word choice. I mean, I want to make sure we review the relationship with these strategic partners, that we're getting the value that we want or the value that we need, and they're getting the money that they need in order to deliver the services that we require. So that's all there. I just don't want to ignore the fact that we are run by contractors.
Well,
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait, you can't just let that one go
Okay.
by.
We are
Yeah.
we are managing contractors.
We
are run by
outsource.
contract.
Well, I guess I reflect back to my days when I had a different type of contract. I think that,
Well, I will
I said what I
say,
said.
I mean, anyway, I think, and this is something I've been talking about for the last couple of years, because the last time I looked at the Blue Star contract, for example, wow, it was more generic than General Mills. So I think we really need to take a second look at that. I think they get rolled over every year without us doing a deeper dive. So I think it needs to be looked at. It's definitely strategic. I agree with you there. TMT, Terra Care, yeah, because they're there. But the biggest hit that we have is with Blue Star. And I think that contract needs to be looked at again, tightened up, not just for the items you mentioned, Helen. But there's very little in there that I saw in the last 2 years that is really favorable for the association. So I'd like to take a look at that one more time this year before we renew. That item on this page was probably more important to me than any of the rest of them, Jeffrey. Except
Wow, I
for
hit one.
3.4, except for 3.4.
3.4.
Wait,
Well,
just
just
quickly,
the-
when you said that's the biggest hit we take, what,
Oh, I'm
what do
sorry,
you mean?
that's,
Financial hit?
no, what I meant was that's probably the one organization that has as much to do with the rest of us. And like Management Trust, yes, they do things to keep us in line, but as far as the day-to-day, everything that is in this building on the outside, Blue Star probably has more impact, well-being, so whatever word you want to use on us than any other contract that we have.
And I would just say that we went through that contract in detail 3 or 4 years ago. Jeffrey was on the lead with that. He and I worked on it. We went through it with the board. And we do have, actually, I'm just gonna guess there's probably about 25 different benchmarks to contribute into determining what their share of the profit will be, so to speak, each year. And part of it is the surveys that are done of the membership. And that gauges the performance and the acceptability and the satisfaction that the membership has with the program. And that's what we really do, is we hire Blue Star to provide the resort club program. It's Blue Star Golf and Resort is the name of the company. And I think it's in pretty good shape.
And yes, it was done 4 years ago. I know that because I tried to see what was in there. I wasn't on the board at the time. And I've mentioned this over the last 3 years, and we just kind of roll it over. And on the surveys, I could be wrong, but I believe most of the surveys we're asked to take come from Blue Star.
Yes.
And I would rather have a survey that's more independent. Because I get the results at the end, but I don't know what the formula was. I'd like to have either third party or something else that's not coming from Blue Star. It's like watching the hen house, right? So when you say, well, we have surveys, yes, but my confidence level in all those numbers is probably not as high as yours.
I think they cooked the books, huh?
I don't know. No, I'm not saying
No,
that.
no,
I heard.
I'm not
We
saying.
are
it's
not
the
saying
books.
that.
They write the
I
question
just want to
and
know.
they get the answers to those questions. I would write a different set of questions because they're writing a question for 30,000 households or
It's a
whatever.
national
It's a
survey.
national survey.
And we always.
I don't
finish
really
number
care.
one.
I don't really care what happens at Vistancia or, Lake Norman or stuff like that, because I don't live in those places. Yeah. Anyway. I think we have something to talk about going forward.
Yes.
Lastly, near and dear to all of our heart is the wine business. I think it is strategic that we really determine how we evaluate the wine business going forward. How we offset, our goal always is to offset the vineyard expenses. I don't think anybody ever thought we were gonna make $1 zillion making, $100 bottle of wine. But we started down that path. Obviously, the market has changed. Once again, I'm not trying to solution it, but I just think it's absolutely critical that the community get on board and stacked hands as to what direction we're going on in the wine business. Are we gonna make wine, sell grapes? We're just gonna have landscaping, and how do we liquidate the inventory? Or move our inventory. Liquidate has a kind of connotation that I probably shouldn't say. So I think that to me is a strategic effort going forward. I think, John's gonna reconstitute the vineyard committees. The last group did a great job, particularly transitioning the farmer to what we have today. So I think that's going forward, something that we really need to keep a focus on. But recognizing that the cost of the vineyards is $400,000 a year, plus or minus a little bit, and we're a $10 million business, so it's important, but it's not the biggest driver of the cost in the community. Any
It's
comments?
definitely something we need to look into. It comes up at just about all meetings that we attend. It was, when did we begin this? 2017, 2018 as a test to see how we can do, will it be effective? And we've gotten taught a whole lot of things since then. So it is definitely time to take a look again.
We need and we plan on working on this, Cindy, and you're right, it needs to. We need a go forward plan for 2025 and beyond. And we need to basically stop and take a second look at it. Because what we have now isn't working nor sustainable. So hopefully we'll have something over the next couple of months the board can take a look at as far as 2025.
But I will say LMI's been doing a fabulous job with the maintenance.
Oh, yeah, I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
The
absolutely,
agricultural side.
Yeah, that's-
yeah.
The
James
There's no
David-
focus there, Cindy.
Jamie made it pretty clear that nobody's allowed to talk to the farmer but her.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, that's wrapping up the business side. One of the things when we talk about the business, we got to recognize, that we cannot go moving forward, making Blue Star do stuff or James do. They've got a day-to-day job. If we ask them to do something and it takes it away from their day-to-day job, then we don't get the day-to-day service. So that we just have to recognize that if we're going to have some community involvement, they can't go to, Tony in the halls and, oh, just a one-off thing to talk to you about because she's running to do something else. So that's just a fact. The other thing that we need to be aware of is where we live in the county and the whole labor pool. It's easy for me to say, well, pay higher to get a massage therapist out here or something. There's only a limited amount of labor that we draw on, and we compete against Livermore and Walnut Creek. And why Vasco Road is such a joy to drive on, or Highway 4, because people are leaving going there. So we just got to recognize, we elected to live in this part of the county, and the labor is the labor it is, and you can't attract people from bigger labor markets. My last slide on this, and then we'll get to member input part of the open forum, is member engagement. If we want to, I will tell you from my experience, just for me, the board is, I don't say overwhelmed, but most of us treat this as a full-time job. And that's not what any of us signed up for. And it shouldn't be like that going forward. But it is what it is at the moment, and we're all committed to doing what we need to do. But if we pick up any new things, we can't drive this. We have to get members help. But it's got to be a fine balance of how we get members help, because they can't go to the Blue Star and TMT and say, well, do this. I mean, it's just a fine line. So we can't only pick 2, 3, a couple of things moving forward. I don't know what they are, but we obviously will do those on our strategic plan. Now, some of these things, as y'all have pointed out, are just tactical work, and that's we'll just throw it on the plate and we'll take care of it. But I just think if we talk about member engagement going forward, we've just got to be mindful that we can't, kill everybody with the process. I think we've made significant progress moving forward, in the past about moving things, member engagement, but I don't think we have a formal process other than our open forum. So I think if we put some community work groups together, I think about the work that David has done on the ADA. That was kind of a homegrown thing. People say we've got an ADA issue. John took the leadership of that. We did the study. That's kind of been ground up. And I think some of these other things that are ground up, y'all get together and say, well, we think we should work on this. The board can give them some seed money or identify a resource. So we just need to be very, very strategic on how we want community engagement, because we can't, I could speak for me, I can't do anymore. So we do need some community help.
Well, we didn't sleep, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We just don't go to bed at
Yeah.
night. No, it is a lot that we do, and we all know we put
Yeah,
a
and
lot
I'm
of
not, I'm
time.
not complaining.
No,
It's
absolutely
just,
not. We
you know,
know
it's
what was
just, it's
happening.
what it is, and that's what we signed up for.
And we invite those who want to be involved to get involved, and we acknowledge those who don't want to be involved. That's fine. They elected us to do a lot of this
Right.
stuff, so that's what we do.
You're not really doing a good marketing campaign.
No, I'm
for
not.
new board members.
Well, you're right. But I mean, it's obvious. I mean,
I was gonna say.
I was up here last night and some of the people said, you're still here. I saw you at 7 a.m. And they were drinking and I was walking around my clipboard. So
That's your problem.
that's exactly right. I agree. I signed up for it. I'm not complaining. So with that, that's kind of my sales pitch, not much of a sales pitch, but, my pitch on what I think we need to move towards some of the strategic plan. We've got some great feedback of things that are not strategic, that are just things we need to do. Some things you probably don't need to do at all. I will try to synthesize some of that, but I'd like at this point, we have some open forum questions, which I'd like to get the community's thought on. And then after that, if people have some things they wanted to share with us, that didn't put a pink slip in, that's fine too. So,
Yeah.
well, we do need to get out of here at noon.
Oh. One thing we haven't mentioned is the building defect situation.
Oh, that's not
Hopefully that
strategic.
case
That's not-
will come to fruition, this year.
Yeah.
We will have a big ongoing effort after that that's going to overshadow a lot of things. You
That's
know, you're just talking about, we finished the access project was a $250,000 project. That was the biggest project we've done to date. Now you got the kitchen going on at 470. When we start talking about the pool building at $5-10 million type number, that's going to overshadow a lot of our capability and spare time once it happens. I'll be older.
Yeah.
But we're gonna twist Vinnie's arm for sure.
Well, we have to put them on a payroll.
Yeah. And we do actually have in our mind that we will hire a professional project manager
Yes,
for that
absolutely.
project. There's no way we can run that just as a volunteer project. But whether that's strategic or not, I don't know, but it's a huge thing that's going to overshadow
Yeah.
a lot of stuff in the next 2 years.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Joe. Thank you for that. I just, should have put it on there, but I didn't. But I will going forward. We'll have
I
that.
don't know if it's strategic.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just public
It's
info.
just gonna happen.
But it is a cloud, it's a cloud that, you know, affects everything else.
It affects our capability and our resources that we have for other things.
Thanks very much for that reminder. Anybody else have anything before we do go to open forum? Jamie, your show.
Right. The first one we have is from Nancy LaBelle. Nancy, I see you're here. Did you want me to read it still for you?
Yes,
Okay. I'd like to make it known once again that many homeowners who live both directly on and off vineyards are concerned about the immediate and future direction of the vineyards. Those of us with the vineyards directly in our backyard are most affected by the choices of the viticulture committee, the board, and the HOA make regarding the maintenance and vineyards and the sales of grapes. We are acutely aware it is not reasonable to think that all grapes will be sold in 2025 or even in 2026 and beyond due to the overall wine sales continuing to drop everywhere. However, we are not being kept informed or being asked for input about the current state or future plans of the vineyards, and we deserve to be. I was just told, because I asked by John, that the decision to drop unsold grapes in an unripened stage has been decided for 2025. This is not what Trilogy homeowners fought for in 2024. As you know, many Trilogy homeowners face the significant consequences of 2024 of grapes being dropped behind our homes, attracting an increase of rodents, insects, and making our backyards look like a dumping ground compost pile. You heard from several homeowners in 2024 who experienced rodent-caused damage to their homes inside and out and who paid for expensive eradications efforts, including myself. We are very aware that will always have many critters where we live. However, we suffer the greatest displeasure of dealing with a significant increase in rodents directly related to the 2024 grape drop decision made by the VC. This is not acceptable. According to Macaulay Ag, rats will eat anything even green unripened grapes, unripened grapes. I like to know what proof you all have that unripened, grapes will not attract rodents. As I said over and over in 2024, as did many of my neighbors, we are living in a unique situation where we are a resident property surrounding agricultural land. Our backyards are 20 feet from the grapes, so decisions that are made by the HOA, BC, and the board have consequences that affect our quality of life, as well as the resale value of our homes. We are retired older people living here to enjoy life at its fullest. We should not be worried about those representing us will make decisions that many negatively impact us. We also paid a premium for the lot purchased on the vineyards. I personally was assured by the realtor listing my home that the vineyards are well cared for and maintained so that our daily view is a pleasant one. In the now going on 3 years I've been here, this has not been my experience. Many of my neighbors feel the same way. Some say they would have never purchased if they knew what reality was. I'm aware of the new farmer and hope that they bring best practices for not only our surrounding agricultural land, but practices that take into consideration that all of it connects directly to residents' properties. I also expect our HOA will always stand behind what's best for its members, owners first. There must, of course, be a big picture plan for the future of our grapes as we face the reality of ongoing sales. Our grape growing efforts must be profitable, and we all want best case scenarios. All grapes sold and carted off annually. We have volunteers running the show who we appreciate. However, our overall vineyard success can only thrive if we establish a well-run business with paid experts and an aggressive marketing team to move our grapes. In the meantime, while those bigger decisions are being made, and the decisions should involve homeowners' input, we must be assured the vineyards will be maintained well, and that includes not dropping fruits of any color to attract rodents and insects. A focus on keeping our vineyards beautiful and clean for everyone to enjoy should also be put top of mind. What about the spraying of the vines so that they don't produce fruits at all? Why is that not being looked at as an option? I'm quite frustrated and I feel like a broken record. Trilogy owners made our case loud and clear in 2024, bringing solid proof of the consequences directly related to and correlated with the timing of the 2024 grape drop. Due to the persistent pressure from the homeowners and the board, March 2nd, approved the cleanup for 10K in 2024. As reported to all of you, we saw the rodent situation decrease greatly after the cleanup efforts, and it took minimal money to do so. I do not believe anyone on the board or the BC lived directly on the vineyards. I may be mistaken. I think this lends itself to the lack of urgency and compassion we faced in 2024 by certain board and BC members. Here we are again, 2025, being faced with the same scenario, although you are now talking about dropping unripened grapes. Again, what proof do you have that this won't attract rodents? Have you consulted with Macaulay Ag like I have? This is not just an owner directly on the vineyards issue. There are many homeowners off the vineyards that are concerned and affected by decisions being made. Many off the vineyards suffered the consequences of the dropped grapes in 2024. Rats get around and care about the overall beauty of their surroundings greatly. I ask that this issue be taken seriously. With Trilogy homeowners, safety, needs, wants always top of mind. Everyone must remember we are a residential community first. Priorities and planning must be focused on what keeps us all safely enjoying our homes, and that the surrounding property at Trilogy at the Vineyards maintains its value and beauty. The end. We thank you for your feedback. As you know, this is a topic of discussion, and we'll continue on with the leads of John. Next one we have is David Crow. I'm sorry?
David's here.
David, I'm sorry, did you want me to read this or would you like to read it?
No, I can ask.
Okay.
So
But David,
If you can
can
go
you
to
come
the
up
podium,
with-
please.
Up to the podium.
people at home.
My old friend. So the question really is, and I appreciate how you describe moving forward. You know, as I see it, we're a social club here, and there's different buckets that each of us enjoy. And my question has to do with Alice's and what the plans for Alice's are. There've many discussions that I've been a part of where they talk about what we're going to do in there, and it includes adding high top tables to enhance the bar experience in there, because that's really what we are in there, is more of a bar than a restaurant, in my opinion. So a very simple yes or no question. Has there been discussions about changing the arrangement in there so that there's more high top tables?
Yeah, I've discussed it with myself. I mean, that's where my point is just, the community needs to decide how they do that. We have no architectural plans. I have a sketch that I made myself. But so no, there's nothing in the works today, but I think for me, I'd like to see it as a community engagement. There's some people who want it as a bar, some people want it as a lounge, and some people want to leave it just the way it is. But it needs to be something and agreed upon. So I don't have an answer for you, but it will be hopefully part of this process going.
Good. That's all I need to know. That way the rumors will stop about there's
No, they
already
won't.
risers to raise the tables.
No, there is no money been allocated that I know of to do anything in there, and I would think that
Has there been money allocated to do the acoustics project in there?
No.
The project's been identified.
Yeah. I got an estimate of what it would
This was
cost.
version one.
Yeah,
So something will happen.
All right. Thank you for your time and your efforts.
my pleasure, David.
Can I give my closing statement? No, I guess I can't.
Next we have Annette Rodriguez. Congratulations to the board, Jeffrey, for attempting to put forth a strategic plan. It is sorely needed. I will volunteer to support those items that promote community involvement. Our members should drive these important issues. Sorry I had to leave, giving a class for LMCC.
Okay.
Next we have Jim Martinez would like to speak.
Take good notes, Stacy.
Thank you, everyone. Jim Martinez from Forensic. So I'd like to talk about two of the issues that were brought up during the strategic meeting. One is the 5-year strategic facility plan, and the other one relates to the vineyard. So I think there's a little bit of misconception about what the strategic 5-year plan for facilities would look like. When the finance committee proposed this, it was an open-ended discussion about what that would look like, but a strategic, and actually the question I think Dave brought up about Alice's and what we do with it is at the heart of what a strategic facility plan would encompass. The reserve study is not a strategic facility plan. And I'll say why, in my opinion. It is a 30-year plan with a 30-year cash flow of what we do with our existing components as they're defined in the plan. It doesn't mean, and we have a number of rehab components. In other words, we have a certain amount of dollars to spend on refreshing the space. It's open-ended. When that comes up, we need to decide how that which should look like. That would be part of the strategic 5-year plan in order to allocate our dollars that are going to maximize member satisfaction. Part of the strategic plan would also engage member input. What is it that they want to see? Do we want to be the Four Seasons or do we want to be a Marriott? And if you want to be a Four Seasons, is the community willing to pay for that level of there? That's all part of it. I view it as a overlaying plan to part of the CIP process, part of the reserve study process. So that's all I'll say on that.
Jim, thanks for that clarity. That's very well.
The vineyards, and and I appreciate that being on the strategic plan. The board had a vineyard workshop the early part of last year. I made some extensive comments at the time about that in regards to we need to have a plan as to what we're going to do, particularly with the wine and grape sale area. For those who don't know it, we have 3,700 cases of wine, either in finished or in process, at about $180,000. How is it that we're going to move that? Should we continue making wine? Again, our viticulture activities were premised on the fact that this would generate cash to help offset that $400,000 of maintenance costs. In the last 3 years, from the viticulture wine sale activity, that has not brought in any cash, and is in fact, we've had to move approximately $120,000 from the operating side to viticulture. How can we continue? Is that something that we should continue doing? Jeffrey, I think 3 or 4 years ago, when we had the discussion on wine production, always asked the question, what is the risk of spending the dollars to produce wine? And the answer was, we could always recover that cost. We can't recover that cost if it cost us $5.50 a bottle and we're selling it at the concierge desk in December for $5. That's not recovering that cost. So we need to have a hard look at that. And I applaud the board for doing that. We need to really close that and develop a plan with a set of financial metrics that tell us we can continue doing this or we need to exit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim.
Right, next we have Clary.
Okay, hi, my name is Clary Acevedo, and I use the pool here for the indoor pools mostly more than the outdoor pools. I'm very concerned because in the 4 years that I have been living in this community, I had never seen a pool guy taking care of the pool. The pool is open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I have used it in different times. And nobody, if you are going to use a pool, a cleaner pool, I use chemicals in the pool to clean the water. The pool has to be without people inside. I had pool in my house all my life. And there was one day that the pool guy come and clean the pool and say, you don't use the pool for 3 hours. But here, I'm seeing him that is smiling because I went and talked to him. Yeah, I talked to you once and say, who is cleaning the pool? And you say, we got a guy who cleans the pool. What time? You didn't know what time was. The other day I went to swim. It was 10 a.m. Here comes a guy with the products to see, the level of the pool, I don't know how you say, but
The chemicals.
the balance, okay. And I was swimming on that line. And he came and pulled, look it, and he said to the guy who was swimming next to on the other line, and he said, everything is fine. And he dropped the chemicals into the pool where I was swimming. We are people that are retired. Our health is not like we were young age. Anything can, affect on our systems. When we swim, we open our mouth and we sometimes, water gets into our mouth and drink it. And I really request, if you say that you are taking care of the pool, I request you to put one sign, like all the pools, public pools are, and saying it was taken care. You wanna tell me something?
Yes, so we have very strict county guidelines and codes that we have to follow, and it's tested twice a year. The gentleman you saw was the city pool inspector, so we get inspected twice a year. He was here for an inspection. Like, he wasn't putting chemicals in, but they were testing the chlorine in the water, and so they do that. It's the chemicals are changed manually like a residential pool where a guy comes in and does it. It's injected, so we have injectors in the pool, and it's a quite expensive equipment, but it's kind of micro injections. I don't know enough about it. We'd have to have the maintenance team speak about it, but it's very strict. Like, we can't be off even 0.5, or the pool gets shut down. And so it is very strict. And so we're within the guidelines always. We're always being tested, and then the chemicals are always being updated and tested, especially in the morning. So the team comes in really early in the morning before the pool opens. They got tests.
What time?
5:30. I'll check with Scott, but it's tested. It has to be tested every morning, and then they test in the evening as well. And so we've never been shut down, and they take a lot of pride in that. We would not want our pool to be shut down, and they're very strict in the county. So
Have you looked, the pool around in the main pool, it's dirty. It's very dirty.
It's not I mean,
Excuse me, I'm not trying to, but the open forum is for you to ask a question. We'll get an answer for you and get back to you. So it's not.
Okay,
so-
yes,
but-
I really appreciate
No.
if you can just give us information that the pool has been taken care of,
We will-
because, I just don't wanna get
No, I
sick
Absolutely understand.
or nobody
We
here,
will
okay?
absolutely understand, and we'll get with the team to figure out what's the right way to make sure that you have the comfort that you need
Not only me,
with the whole community.
the whole
whole
community, I'm not
community.
speaking,
Just-
not only for me,
I don't for
I'm
the
speaking
pool.
for the whole community that use the pool.
Yeah, we'll,
Okay. Thank you.
Since you commented on David, I will say that I hear this same comment at home. And that the person that tells me has a lot of credibility. It's a dirty pool.
Yeah.
Diane?
Hello, everyone. I'm Diane Freitag. 2019 Tempranillo Lane. I moved in about a little over a year ago. I want to applaud the board's efforts to foster community and get more member engagement. Before moving here, I lived up in Trilogy at Redmond. And they were doing things along these lines. They had about 8 board sanctioned committees made up of members of the community, so that had an automatic 100 people represented. I happened to chair the lifestyle committee, and we had a subcommittee that focused on new member orientation. And we went from the early days of resurrecting breakfasts for new members to moving towards members going into their homes. And then we found that was too much. So we had a quarterly meeting, open session meeting for any new members, but also for any members who wanted to be reoriented to what the club offered. And it was very successful. We had representatives from the HOA, from member services, from clubs, from the board themselves, welcoming new members, and everyone loved it. And I just wanted to say, doing something similar here, I think would be very doable. And the second point was, in order to get more engagement, member services sponsored monthly meetings in the clubhouse. It was the most attended meeting of the month. They offered free hors d'oeuvres. The bar was open. And HOA and the member services made announcements about upcoming events for the month. Clubs were able to make announcements. It was just a wonderful opportunity for everyone to just sit around and mingle with each other and know what was going to happen every month. So those are just two ideas, and I think having more of a structure here for soliciting member input would be very helpful. And I would be involved if I was asked.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Appreciate all those,
Yeah.
your knowledge, skills, and ability will not be wasted.
Like last, we have Shay.
Just a quick question on outcome 1.2, which is member and non-member profitability goals. My question is in how we determine profitability for non-member goals. Because if you factor in the extra staff and extra kitchen facilities that are required to produce non-member events, then the profitability diminishes. And I would think it would be to all of our benefits to take a look at that. If we reimagined everything, let's say we're just a catering kitchen, you have a lot less staff involved 24/7. You have fewer kitchen facilities that are required. You have more accessibility in terms of rooms for member events, which is enhancing the member experience. So I know the expectation has been that non-member events keep our dues down. But if we drill into it and include those extra cost factors, it might change that picture. So my question is, can we drill down and get a better picture of it?
Thank you. Okay, now we'll, happy to open up the podium for anyone who doesn't have a pink slip, but you got to stand up there now. And
A bad foot, but it's getting better.
well, I would have brought it over to you then, though.
I'm glad to see people here today. That's a good sign. I've been here we bought our house about 2.5 years ago. My name's Don Stidham, and we moved into it about 2 years ago because we did some work on it before we came in. But my orientation was to come to the front desk and say, what do we do? How do we get involved here in things that we want to do? So the comments about orientation programs and that being on the list is, I think, a fantastic thing. There's still some things that we're learning about how to engage in, but that's on us to learn. I just want to make an appeal and say that I think that it would be nice to change the voice somewhat from the standpoint that the community becomes the driving force of the direction of Trilogy going forward.
Yes.
And that the community defines the overall concept of where we want to be. And the comment that Jim made about, do we want to be a Four Seasons, or do we want to be a Marriott, or do we want to be a Holiday Inn, should be something that the community decides. And there are ways that we can do that. I think that being creative, I'm new to this. I'm new to the finance committee, so I don't bring any preconceived ideas on anything other than how can we make it better. And better, in my view, should be defined by the community, not by anybody else. So some of your ideas on community engagement, refreshing a survey that took place 4 years ago to define the future. There's been a lot of people move in the last 4 years, had no input into that. It should be refreshed from time to time to see if we're on course, what do we want to be when we grow up. What we are today was defined by Blue Star, more or less. They painted a picture, they created a resort, we walked in the door, we bought into it. Blue Star doesn't run the operation. They're contracted to do certain things, but we now took it over. So it's ours. It's ours to define and ours to decide. So my appeal to the board and my thanks to the board is the concept of community engagement. And I think that it should really be the driving force. We've got some things defined, but I think they should be reinforced. And I hope 2025 is a year where we can really accomplish that. So that's
Don, thank you for your comments and thanks for serving on the finance committee. Craig?
So I'll do it to everybody else. And thanks to the board for doing these things. However, I would like to talk about communication for a second. Communication is a two-way street. We have a lot of one-way dialogues in this community. This board meeting is an example of it. We don't have any opportunity to have a conversation. You talk at us, and then we get 2 seconds to go, I have a question, and if we try to have a dialogue, we're told basically to shut up. The other day, somebody referred to a comment that came from the community at the peanut gallery. Okay, that was at the board meeting the other day. That's kind of insulting.
Okay.
All right, so the point being is that if we're gonna have dialogues, then that has to be communication. That's a two-way street so that people have an opportunity to say what's on their mind. I don't know if this is the right forum for it, but then we have to create those forums for it. You and Helen know in particular that I've said many times, we need a lot more committees. We need to start doing things. We've been talking about it for 10 years. I've been here for 10 years. Let's get the community engaged in an interactive, iterative process, not just being talked to or listened to. So that to me is what really gets this done. How you get a community engaged is that when they say something, they're not just heard and we'll get back to you at some point, but there's some sort of a solution that takes place. And again, other examples, I thought this was going to be a strategic planning meeting. We talked a lot about processes. CIP isn't strategic planning. That's a capital process. Strategic planning is sitting down and saying, where do we want to be 5 to 10 years from now? How do we get there? That's the dialogue that I was hoping to have here. So if we don't have it here, then I'd like to propose that we have another event where we get that opportunity to come in and talk about really where we want to be holistically. And it's process, and it's a dialogue. And so if you have to have 3 or 4 communities so you can or committees, so you can actually talk to each other and get stuff done. You know, the last committee, I remember they did the pool committee. I think that was 1.5 years to decide we didn't do anything. Okay, so just again, communication is a two-way street, not a dialogue, and we don't do a very good job of it. So that's my 2 cents.
If I can make one comment on that, I do agree with Greg said, but in our world and in the public world, open forum is pretty strict, where we're not supposed to engage in a dialogue. That's the way open forums are by law, and I think they're set up that way in David Sterling as well. I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission for the city of Brentwood, and we have people speaking at open forum. We cannot, by law, engage. That doesn't mean we can't have external committees that has been mentioned, but I just want everybody to understand that we can't necessarily engage in a conversation during open forum just by law.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I mean, obviously I've heard that before.
I would like to say, generally we have board meetings, we have workshops, and when we're looking for community involvement, we have what we call our town halls. Okay, the board meetings and the workshops are specifically outlined as to how we do it. They are for the board to conduct business and for the board to trade ideas amongst, to talk about how they want to see things go or what they think are issues. And boards can't do that in private. That's why we do it in a workshop. The town halls are where we bring in the input from the community. And just a comment on the pool effort. That was a committee. It did have a town hall. It did do a survey to all the members. It collected information, and the conclusion was the majority didn't want to change it. That's why nothing was done. So any more comments from the audience? Okay, I won't say peanut gallery. That was my mistake.
Hi, Nancy Lavelle. Y'all know me. Not talking anymore about the vineyards. But I have a degree in technology. So when you talked about earlier, understanding community expertise, I think it's an amazing idea and a fabulous one. And I think it's very important. And one way to do that is simply add fields to our profile. And when people live here and when people move in, or actually all the people that live here now can update a profile and have fields in that profile that simply ask, what are you an expert in? Do you have a degree in XYZ? Did you work in this industry? What company did you work for? And then you can do all kinds of things with that. Create a speaker list. People can be speakers at different events, and really utilize their expertise. And I'm all about committees. Nobody has ever asked me in 3 years if I wanted to join one. I'll be happy to join one, and I'll talk about the vineyards till I'm blue in the face. But I would be on any committee, and a welcome wagon for new people coming in is just a simple committee that can be put in place by each area, Valencia, Forenzia, Sonoma, and a welcome wagon. Nobody came to my house with a basket. I'd be happy to put baskets together. I'd be happy to do something like that. And I know a lot of my neighbors would. So that would tick off a couple of the items that you brought up, Jeffrey, which I want to thank you for, because you put a lot of thought into what you put in those slides. And I know they're from your heart. I can tell just by what you put up there. And really, community engagement is what we need to focus on.
Shay, just save me a couple of minutes because I want to wrap this thing up. So.
Yeah, okay, yeah, just follow up really on the last two speakers, and in terms of what you guys said at the beginning, which I totally believe and understand, that you are overworked. Every time I see you guys up here at the club, I think, oh my God, I would never volunteer for that position. It's a volunteer position and you're always here. Maybe a way of making your jobs a little easier, a little more survivable, is if you had like 10 standing committees that are just standing committees, and you had people on it that you grew to trust, you wouldn't have to get so much in the weeds on every single thing, because you go to Joe and Sally and Jane, and they're presenting what the committee has come up with, so that you guys are operating more at the CEO kind of level, instead of trying to be in the weeds as well as act as CEO. So, and I think a lot of us here would love to be on those committees if we were asked. So.
Shay and Nancy, thank you for those comments. Just to wrap this up, first I'll ask my colleagues, any comment from any of you guys before we start to wrap up?
We do have an opening on the finance committee. Please, it is posted on MTL. It went out via email. Please, they have a very different job than these people up here, but we would love your submission, or just tell your friends and neighbors. So anyone out there who's qualified can submit for that open position. Thank you.
Here's where I think we go is obviously we got a lot of feedback today. I think there is a potential for all row in the same direction. Obviously, I've overreached in some areas. In other areas, we're not very clear, but on the other hand, we at least got a bunch of things that I think we can focus on. I'm going to try and synthesize all this, and then we're going to figure out what the next steps are. We're not going to solve this today, but we're looking at a 3-year plan. But the comments that Don brings up, about the tenor of the community, is it a 4 Seasons or a Holiday Inn? All those things that we will, we're going to start. The next step will probably be a town hall with the community on a more refined list. Got a lot of mechanics to figure out how to do if we have committees, how to do that, and it doesn't overwork everybody. I mean, it's just, we need to kind of regroup a little bit on the strategic outlook going forward, and hopefully we can all stack hands on that. So I thank everybody for your participation, and those people at home and the people who watch it on Zoom later on. If you have any questions about the process going forward, anything to talk about today, my email and phone number are on everything. So we'll talk to you soon. And the next scheduled meeting is February 10th, which I would like to not have, but I think we probably will.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.